Hey everyone! Welcome back to the podcast where we break down English learning struggles and how to overcome them. I'm Emma.
And I'm Jake.
Today, we're talking about one of the biggest frustrations English learners face: understanding English but struggling to speak it.
Right, so many learners tell us, I can watch movies, I understand conversations, but when I try to speak, nothing comes out.
Exactly.
And if you feel this way, don't worry, you're not alone.
This happens to a lot of learners, and today we're going to break down why it happens and what you can do about it.
So, if you've ever felt stuck when trying to speak, this episode is for you. Let's get into it.
All right, so let's start with the big question: why does this happen? Why is it that people can understand English pretty well, but struggle when it's their turn to speak?
There are actually a few reasons for this. One of the biggest, passive versus active learning.
Oh yeah, that's a huge one. A lot of people spend years consuming English watching movies, listening to music, even reading articles, but they don't actually use it.
Exactly, when you're just listening or reading, you're in passive mode. Your brain is recognizing words and understanding the meaning, but you're not practicing producing language.
That's like watching basketball games for years, but never actually playing.
You know the rules, you understand how the game works, but when someone throws you a ball, you're like,
What do I do?
That's such a good analogy. It's the same with English. If you never train your speaking muscles, they won't be ready when you need them.
So the solution is obvious, right? You have to speak more.
But I know what some people are thinking right now. That's easy to say, but I don't have anyone to talk to.
Yep, and we're going to talk about that too. But first, another big reason people struggle to speak is fear of making mistakes.
Oh, this is a huge one. So many learners feel self-conscious when speaking English.
They're afraid of pronouncing something wrong, using incorrect grammar, or just sounding weird.
And what happens? They hesitate, they overthink, and sometimes they don't speak at all.
Exactly.
But here's the thing: making mistakes is literally how you improve. If you wait until your English is perfect before speaking, you'll never start.
100%. Even native speakers make mistakes all the time. The key is to focus on communication, not perfection.
Right.
But I know that's easier said than done. So let's get into some practical ways to overcome this.
Great idea. One simple trick. Start by speaking out loud even if you're alone.
Oh yeah, this is huge.
Just getting comfortable forming English sentences with your mouth can make a big difference.
Exactly. You can read aloud, describe what you're doing in English, or even repeat what you hear in movies.
I love that.
And another trick:
shadowing.
Yes, for those who don't know, shadowing is when you listen to a native speaker and repeat what they say as quickly as you can, trying to match their pronunciation and rhythm.
It's such a powerful technique because it forces you to speak without overthinking.
You're training your brain and mouth to produce English naturally.
Right, and it helps with confidence too, because you start to get used to speaking at a natural speed.
Exactly. And another great way to practice, even if you don't have a conversation partner, is to record yourself speaking.
Oh, this one is so effective. I know it feels awkward at first, but when you record yourself, you can actually hear what you sound like and see where you need to improve.
Right.
You might notice that you pause too much or that you struggle with certain words. Then, you can focus on fixing those things.
And the more you do it, the more natural speaking will feel.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about passive vs.
active learning, fear of mistakes, and some solo practice techniques. But what about people who really want real conversation practice?
Great question. There are actually so many ways to find conversation partners even if you don't live in an English-speaking country.
Yes, language exchange apps, online speaking groups, even just commenting in English on social media, it all helps.
Exactly. And if you can't find someone to talk to, you can still simulate conversations.
Oh, I love this.
Like asking yourself questions and answering them out loud.
Yes, you can pretend you're having a conversation, like, hey, how was your day? And then answer, oh, it was great. I did this and that.
It might feel weird at first, but trust me, it works.
100%. And the more you practice, the more speaking will feel like second nature.
Exactly. And once you get over that initial hesitation, speaking English will start to feel much easier.
Yes, so don't be afraid to make mistakes. Find ways to use the language and keep pushing yourself to speak.
And remember, the goal isn't perfection, it's progress.
Right. And another thing to keep in mind is that consistency is key. If you only practice speaking once in a while, it's going to be tough to see real progress.
Exactly. Think of it like going to the gym.
You wouldn't expect to build muscle if you only work out once a month, right? It's the same with speaking English. You have to train regularly.
Yep, even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes a day, that daily habit will make a huge difference over time.
And honestly, the hardest part is just getting started.
Once you make it a habit, it becomes so much easier.
So true, and I think a lot of people underestimate small wins. Like, maybe today you speak for 1 minute without hesitating, that's a win. Maybe tomorrow you learn a new phrase and actually use it, that's another win.
Exactly.
Progress isn't always about huge leaps.
It's about small, consistent steps that add up over time.
And I feel like when people focus on those small wins, they actually stay motivated instead of feeling overwhelmed.
Totally.
So, if you're struggling to speak, just remember it's not about being perfect.
It's about practicing a little every day and pushing yourself to use the language, no matter what.
Absolutely. And another thing that helps is focusing on speaking naturally, rather than trying to translate everything perfectly from your native language.
Oh yeah, this is a big one. A lot of learners get stuck because they're thinking in their native language first, trying to construct a perfect English sentence, and then by the time they're ready to speak, the conversation has already moved on.
Exactly. And honestly, native speakers don't even speak perfectly all the time. They make mistakes, they rephrase things, they use filler words. It's totally normal.
Yes. So instead of aiming for perfection, aim for flow. Even if your sentence isn't 100% grammatically perfect, if the other person understands you, you're communicating. And that's what matters most.
Right. And one way to train this is to practice thinking in English. Just describe what's happening around you in English, even if it's in your head. Like, I'm making coffee. I'm walking to work. That guy is wearing a red jacket.
Yes.
It sounds so simple, but it really helps you get used to forming sentences without translating.
Another great way to get comfortable speaking naturally is to focus on chunks of language instead of individual words.
Oh, I love this. Instead of memorizing single words, learn common phrases and expressions. Like, instead of thinking, how do I say I don't know in English?
Just learn the phrase, I have no idea, I'm not sure.
Exactly. This way, when you're in a conversation, you don't have to build every sentence from scratch. You already have ready-to-use phrases that just flow.
And this is actually how native speakers talk. We don't stop and think about every single word. We just pull from patterns we already know.
Right. So if you want to sound more natural and confident, start collecting phrases and using them in your daily practice.
And speaking of confidence, let's talk about mindset. Because I think a lot of learners struggle with self-doubt when speaking English.
Yes, and honestly, mindset is everything. If you believe you're bad at speaking English, you're going to hesitate more, overthink more, and avoid speaking whenever you can.
Exactly. But if you shift your mindset and think, every mistake I make is helping me improve, then suddenly, speaking becomes a lot less scary.
Yes, instead of saying, I'm bad at English, say, I'm still learning, and I'm getting better every day. That small change in mindset makes a huge difference in your confidence.
100%. And confidence is really the key to speaking fluently. The more you believe in yourself, the more naturally English will come out.
Right. So instead of focusing on what you can't do yet, focus on how far you've already come. Because if you understand English enough to listen to this podcast, you're already doing great.
That's such an important point.
If you're already understanding most of what we're saying, that means your English is way better than you probably give yourself credit for.
Yes, and I think a lot of learners fall into the trap of only noticing their mistakes and not recognizing their progress.
Exactly.
It's like going to the gym and only focusing on the weights you can't lift yet, instead of realizing that you are already stronger than when you started.
I love that analogy, and honestly, the more you use English, the more confident you'll feel. The mistake a lot of people make is waiting until they feel ready before they start speaking.
Oh, totally.
But the truth is, you will never feel fully ready. You just have to start speaking, even if it feels awkward at first.
Right, and that's actually how confidence is built, by doing the thing, even when it feels uncomfortable.
Yes, and remember, every fluent speaker was once a beginner.
Nobody starts off speaking perfectly.
Exactly. So if you ever feel stuck, just remind yourself, fluency isn't about knowing everything. It's about being comfortable using what you already know.
And the best way to get comfortable is by speaking more, even if it's just talking to yourself or practicing with a language partner. The more you do it, the easier it becomes.
100%. So instead of overthinking or doubting yourself, just go for it. Because the only way to get better at speaking is by speaking.
Exactly.
And speaking doesn't have to be some big, formal practice session.
It can be as simple as narrating your day in English, even if you're just talking to yourself.
Yes, like when you're cooking, you can say, okay, now I'm chopping onions. I need to add some salt. Oh, I think I need more oil. Just simple things to get your brain thinking in English naturally.
That's such a good tip. And if you want to make it even more interactive, try recording yourself speaking.
Oh, yes, a lot of people feel weird about this, but it's actually super helpful. You don't have to share it with anyone, just record yourself talking about your day, a book you're reading, or even summarizing a movie.
And then, after a while, you can listen back and notice how much you've improved. It's a great way to track your progress.
Exactly, and another great method is shadowing, where you listen to native speakers and try to repeat what they say as closely as possible.
Oh, I love shadowing.
It helps with pronunciation, rhythm, and even confidence because you're training your mouth to produce sounds like a native speaker.
Yes, and you don't even need a special program, just find a YouTube video, a podcast, or even a TV show and repeat short sentences right after the speaker.
That's such a powerful technique.
And it connects back to what we said earlier. Fluency isn't just about knowing English. It's about training your mouth and brain to use it naturally.
Right, and the more you practice out loud, the less you'll hesitate when you actually need to speak.
Exactly.
And I think that's the ultimate goal, to reach a point where you're not translating in your head, not hesitating, just speaking naturally and confidently.
Yes, and the best part is, the more you do it, the easier it gets. Fluency isn't some magical talent, it's just the result of consistent practice.
Totally. So if you are listening right now and thinking, I can understand, but I can't speak, just remember every single fluent speaker started where you are now.
The only difference is they kept practicing.
Yes, so don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until you feel fluent, just start speaking today, even if it's just a few words. Because every time you speak, you're one step closer to fluency.
And honestly, that's the key. Just keep going. Even if you feel like you're making mistakes, even if it feels awkward, the most important thing is to keep speaking.
Exactly, and don't compare yourself to others. Everyone learns at their own pace. Just focus on your own progress, even if it's small.
Right.
And something that really helps is celebrating those small wins. Like, did you have a short conversation in English today?
Amazing.
Did you learn a new word?
That's progress.
Yes, every little step adds up. And the more you acknowledge your progress, the more motivated you'll be to keep going.
And I think that's something a lot of learners forget. They focus so much on what they can't do yet that they don't appreciate how much they've already improved.
So true. If you go back and listen to yourself from a few months ago, you'll probably notice a big difference. Even if you don't feel fluent yet, you're definitely better than before.
And that's all that matters.
It's not about perfection, it's about progress.
Exactly. Just keep practicing, keep speaking, and trust that fluency will come with time.
And that's really what it's all about: consistent practice, small wins, and trusting the process.
Yes, so if you ever feel stuck, just remind yourself that every fluent speaker was once a beginner. The only difference is, they kept going.
Absolutely. So don't wait, don't overthink, and definitely don't let fear stop you. Just start speaking, even if it's just to yourself.
And remember, mistakes are not failures, they're part of learning. The more you speak, the more natural it will feel.
Exactly. So, to everyone listening, we hope this episode gave you that extra push to start speaking more.
And if it did, let us know. We'd love to hear about your English journey, what's been working for you, what struggles you've faced, and how you're pushing through.
Yes, and don't forget to follow us for more tips and discussions on learning English. We'll be back with another episode soon.
Until then, keep practicing, keep speaking, and most importantly, enjoy the process.
See you next time.
Bye.